Well, Jordan Peterson isn't. He's never admitted he's a Christian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think he's because he knows the Bible so well. I saw recently he was talking about it, and they were like, he's like, what does it? Someone's like, do you believe in God? He's like, I don't even know what that means. It's like,
Yeah.
he always like finds a way to like over
I was
analyze.
gonna say overcomplicate things.
Yeah, and like
I know the exact clip,
you
or
know
at
the
least I should say I think I know the
you know
exact
the
clip you're talking
dude, what's that country band they sing? Save a horse, ride a cow,
about. I know who you're
Big
talking
and
about.
Rich or something like that.
I'm
But
bad
if
with
you got to
those things.
listen to the podcast where that dude, he's a born again Christian now, one of those dudes. I don't know if it's Big or Rich
Yeah.
or if that's, I think it's two people. But he's on his podcast, and the dude's like, he pretty much says like, dude, he's like, you have this huge audience of Christians who follow you. You know the Bible. He's like, you could be pretty much the best vessel
Yeah.
in the last 100 years with all these young men who follow you in this world, and you won't admit this, this, or this. And Jordan Peterson sat there and like got tears in his eyes, dude.
Really?
Yeah, he like, and he was like, you could be. He was like, like you could be doing this. You could be this. You need to do that. And he like, because not too many people are going to talk to somebody like that.
Yeah, right.
But it's true, right? You know what I mean? Like I think as a Christian or whatever faith, if you can be an ambassador and a lot of people are willing to listen to you, I think it's partly your place to like do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in your own way. And he pretty much set him straight.
When he started tearing up, did he have a response?
He did. Yeah. I forget what he said. It was, that was probably like 6 months ago. He did that. I thought it was pretty cool because you don't always see that with stuff. Everyone wants to be like, I support you. You know what I mean? Like versus like, dude, this is what I think. Like, and I think the world would be a lot better if you had, because you have these people who have these big voices and like just hearing them and that's why Joe Rogan is so good too. Because if he doesn't agree with you, he'll just say it too. You know what I mean? Like PBD's like that too. And they'll just come out and say like, I disagree, and this is my perspective, and I think that's what people need to hear because people like nowadays, people like you get they think you have to be in agreement with everything somebody else does to be their friend. You know what I mean? Like you could be a Democrat, Republican, Muslim, Christian, whatever. Like you can still be best friends with somebody who doesn't have the same beliefs as you, but now everybody thinks you have to be the exact same person, and that's why I think sometimes when you see people clash like that, it's pretty good for people to see.
I want to make sure I articulate my opinion on this clearly because I agree, but I also believe there has to be a sort of respect and balance that comes with it. So what I mean by that is, so in my space, like when I host a podcast, why I love these conversations is I want to give, like I've told you the platform to talk about what you want to talk about. And so as an interviewer, I think it's a little bit different, right? In that same breath, wanting the conversations to be natural, where I previously stayed away from incorporating my own opinions, I now incorporate my own opinions, not from the sake of trying to explain my reasoning, but more in the sense is if there's other people out there that resonate with my message, it's an opportunity for them to hear that. And so to say that with your point, I'm not always going to just straight up say, I disagree and here's why, but I want to ask further questions to understand. And then at that point, I can just be like, from my own point of view, right, I view it this way for reasons X, Y, or Z. Because what I don't want it to be is combative. I don't believe reasoning comes through confrontation in the sense of we're going to argue. I believe it comes through the confrontation of having an in-depth discussion.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I wasn't, saying like, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah, I think that just hearing people out and a lot of times, like you said, like, why do you think that way? Because you grow up totally different from somebody, you know what I mean? Like, and you don't really know why. And I think putting yourself in their position and having the empathy to do that will help out a lot. And it could even change some of the things that you think. And, I think that's why we should always be pursuing knowledge and wisdom. And sometimes the knowledge and wisdom comes from people who you might even disagree with. I mean, in my life, there's been people I've been surrounded by since I was a little kid that I learned the most from that I said to myself, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be, I don't want, he makes me feel like this or she makes me feel like this. I don't want to ever make somebody feel like this. So it was the best learning experience you could have because you're learning something the opposite way, right? You're not saying, hey, do this. It's, you're learning and you feel the way you feel on the other end of the stick. And I think that that's one way that that would be,
Have
you
you
know?
always been spiritual? Or like when did you start coming to grips with your faith?
Yeah. I mean, I've always been, um, I say religious and that's like not like the term now. It's like it is spiritual or, but yeah, I mean, I grew up Catholic. My family was pretty spiritual, pretty religious. I mean, I went to CCD and stuff. I went to church with my mom a lot, and my dad's like not super. He don't really go to church or whatever, but he's believes and stuff. But no, I think for me, my journey of faith has I've always been close. I think to God, but I've been scared to take the next step because I knew if I did that, my life would completely change. Because you always want to do things that you want to do, right? You know what I mean? And so if I pursue my faith more and I pursue my relationship with Jesus more, then I got to leave this stuff behind where I don't really I like this stuff. You know what I mean? Like I like doing this. I like hanging out with them. Um, and I think that in the last couple years, my faith has grown a lot and I've um pretty much gave everything up besides that, really. You know what I mean? Like and I tell everybody it's like and it's hard, right? It's not easy and we're none of us will ever be perfect and people probably and we always talk about it in my Bible study, like people probably look at us like this dude used to do this and now he's studying the Bible. Come on. Like it's like, dude, well, like, you grow up, you find what's important to you as you age and you experience the world. And, I tell everybody it's you wake up in the morning and it's a fight, right? You put on the armor of God and it's a fight. Like it ain't easy. It's you're surrounded by people from your past sending you memes that are that are probably a little bit controversial, right? You pop on the radio and you hear a song you used to. I mean, I was leaving the gym today and I heard it. It was this dude in this old Cadillac playing. It was like I don't want to know if that song, whatever. I think it's like Mario or something. But it
Yeah.
reminded me like bang, high school, warm out, summer. What are we doing tonight? Like I'm like thinking, man, like that's a life that I used to live, and my life's much better now. But like I said, it's a war. That living in this world we live in now, you're tempted by so much. You have to have constant reminders of, and you have to have people around you that are going to help keep you on the right path. And I tell everybody, you wake up in the morning, you sit up out of your bed, and you and the devil are like this, face to face. And you're like, and he's like, I want you to do this. It's what he's telling you. The devil isn't like, or evil isn't like this big bad devil like this gonna it's he comes to you in ways that they can tempt you that you like, you know what I mean, and you have to put on, like I said, the armor of God to when those arrows come to knock them off, not let them get to you, and it's a I think we all struggle with different things. And I think the things that we ultimately struggle with will determine our destiny, right? Like certain people are more susceptible to sinning in this way or feeling this way. And I think that how you react to those things are ultimately where will showcase where you will be for eternity, and it's definitely not easy, So, yeah.
The important piece, and at least the thing that grabs me the most is like I see that all the time, particularly on social media, as someone who it was priorly not faithful that becomes faithful, whether regardless of the type of religion or spirituality. And that is the number one critique. People will bring up the past of things that they've done or things that they've said. And then the reality is we're all, like you said, a work in progress. Things are always changing. We're evolving as people, our thoughts, our beliefs. And for someone who finds faith, usually it is prior people who didn't have any faith at all. And they reach a pivot point or a tipping point when they realize the way that they're living is not conducive to fulfillment in life. And they
Right.
have this transition period. Was there a transition period for you where you either wrestled with your faith Or you were like, something's not right. I need to find my fulfillment in life or purpose in life.
Yeah, I would say I think we're always longing for that feeling, even though you could have everything, right? You're always I don't think you could ever be fully fulfilled until, you give your life to God. I really believe that. And you see that with, celebrities and stuff, man. Like they have everything in the world and, you know, they give things up to become closer to God. And because you do have to give up a lot, right? I listened to this one rap song. He says, "You had to kill me to let me live." And it's the truth. Like you cannot, I used to just sin, do things that weren't ideal, right? And then I would ask for forgiveness. And I thought that that was okay, but you actually have to ask for and do repentance. And that is a lot harder than sitting there and saying, "Hey, God, I'm sorry about this, man," and just keep continuing to do it over and over again. You're never going to have the strength to get over those things on your own. But I don't know, some moments in my life, my son, he spent a lot of time in the NICU, and that made me, you get to a point where, you have to, you like, it's like, no, nothing on earth could make you feel better, right? You know what I mean? Like you see a baby born 2 pounds, and it's like, not, it doesn't matter. I could listen to Eye of the Tiger a million times. I could talk to my parents. I could talk to my wife. I could hear people tell me, "Look, this is going to be okay." But it's like, dude, it's like the only thing that made me feel better was talking with God about it, and like actually like talking, more like just not praying per se, but like finding strength. And I've found myself a lot more stronger than I thought I was by gaining that strength. And just being in those positions. And a lot of people, like skeptics, will say too, like, "Oh, people, they become religious because of this." It's like Jesus came to us, and he came for the broken people, right? He didn't come, like, if you read the Bible and stuff, like the Pharisees and Sadducees and people like that, like they thought that they were above the law and were following all this Old Testament stuff. And he came for people like us. And I think that, like, when skeptics say that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know what I mean? I think, and at the end of the day, probably my favorite quote on Christianity is C.S. Lewis when he said, "Chris, if Christianity is false, it is of no of importance," right? So if we're right now, we pray to God, right? We believe in God. If it's false, so what's the word? We lived a great life, right? We were better people because of it. If it's true, it is of infinite importance. The only thing that it isn't is moderately important. It's either nothing or it's everything. So, like, like, looking at it, it's like, well, so you're telling me I can sign up to have a higher power that I think is real, be there for me and make me feel better, make me a better person, make me treat other people better, make me a better dad, make me work harder and live with a purpose. Sign me up. You know what I mean? Like, I believe that it's true. I know that it's true. But for skeptics, it's like, dude, like, are you an idiot? You know what I mean? Like, so you're going to bet against it. What are you gaining from that? Just to say, "Oh, science or this." And to be honest with you, there's so much scientific data that has disproved so much of the old scientific data that it's not real anyways. So it's like, it's such a win-win situation. And there's so much evidence. We talked last time, but I mean, dude, I read like so many books on this when I was, battling with God, wrestling with God. Dude, I mean, the evidence on stuff is dramatic. And any evidence that comes out, any new historical data that comes out, it proves it right, 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 not wrong, wrong, wrong. So that's always made me feel better too, because I do like history, and I read a lot of history that doesn't have nothing to do with Christianity or religion in general. So I think I gravitate towards those things. Um, so yeah, I would think that those are some things that kind of drove home the point with me.
At the lowest common denominator, I always say the same thing. If I'm wrong, so be it. But if I'm right, then like you said, it's eternal. Right.
Yeah.
So at the lowest point, like I don't think that's the only reason or the main reason, but a reason to get started is if you are right, you have the potential for eternal life.
Yeah, I mean, you surround yourself with so many good people, right? I mean, you join a church and it's all a bunch of people who genuinely really care about each other, at least on that day. Now, there's a lot of people that go to church for probably just to check a
Just to
box,
check a box. That's
but
right.
at the end of the day, they're there. You know what I mean? Like you surround yourself with people like that, you know. And like I said, you have a best friend who you can talk to at any time that will make you feel better, right? You have something that in common with with your family that can you can it's just I mean the posit or the activities and are really endless, and the positives are really all really pretty much endless,
I said the one critique. Now, I never pass judgment, and there's a difference between criticism and judgment. But I'll as a Catholic, I'll pick on Catholics here for a moment. Is people who think that they can just show up on Sunday, check that box, and say, "Oh, I'm a Catholic." Where for me, being a Catholic is not a one time thing. It is a lifestyle. It is in the hardest moments to be a Catholic, choosing to be a Catholic because that's what you believe to be true.
hmm
Because I can be a good person one day a week or go to church for an hour on Sunday. Anyone can do that. But what about when I'm being tempted the most at my greatest vices, or I'm in the lowest points of my life or the greatest challenges, right? Am I turning my back on God then, or am I continuing to lean into Him even when it's most difficult? And that's my criticism of Catholics. And I think that's a fair criticism of Catholics. My rebuttal to that is like, obviously I believe the Catholic faith to be truth is like, don't let a few people distract from like the religion aspect of it. But that's my biggest critique with anyone is like, when you do something in this manner, it is your lifestyle. And of course we sin and make mistakes. And that's why we repent.
hmm
But to be all in and to submit in that manner where it is, this is what I believe. And it is
hmm
a lifestyle choice and I live it every single day or aim to live it to my best abilities.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, growing up Catholic, I understand what you're saying. I mean, my son Rocco he was baptized Catholic. I'll probably end up baptizing Giano Catholic too. My only thing with Catholic,
And that
is
was less about Catholicism and more just the general
well,
faith base.
the thing with Catholicism is that it's just like growing up, I never learned the Bible. All it is all these like you go to church and it's like these ceremonies over and over. It's like, well, what I like growing up Catholic, like I could probably name five people out of the Bible you never heard of them. You know what I mean? Like, and to me that doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's one thing that really made me question what I wanted, what denomination I was kind of going after. And it was just, I'm just whatever it is. I don't even know. I think it's called like non-denominational. I'm Bible. I'm the
Um,
Word of God.
yep.
That's what I believe. Like the Bible doesn't really like. I don't really like the Christianity or being Catholic. You say the Hail Mary and stuff like that. Like I don't know.
Do
I
do
mean,
you pray or do you say prayers?
oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I say all Catholic prayers. I would like, but like
Yeah.
I say three. I say that the Our Father, and I say a couple other prayers, and then I just kind of talk to God. But I mean, it's all like for me, like ever since I've transitioned into more of a spiritual lifestyle. I mean, it's all day. I mean, like you know what I mean? Like it's just it's more it feels so good to just like I wake up in the morning. I mean, I still do this, of course, because I'm Italian and Catholic, right? And I just start my day by just praying. God, please give me wisdom today. Whatever comes my way, please help me to be a good dad. Please help me to do the best I can, and whatever I go through, thanks, man. You know what I mean? Like it's just pretty much it. Like you know what I mean? It's like that all day long, man. Like I got this going on. Please help me to deal with this situation I'm going to be going through. I have a tendency to have a short fuse and get mad really quickly. I have a tendency to swear, you know, and I don't want to do that. Please help me. Please help me articulate my words better and not get so upset. When I know things are coming. So yeah, I mean, I pray a lot. You know what I mean? It's more like I said, it's just more like talking. And growing up, like being Catholic, it's like pray. Like I get down on my knees and it's like me and my friends are like looking at each other in church, like laughing. And it's just a little bit different. Now we'll still go to Catholic church and stuff. Like I like it. I actually like some of the ceremonies and stuff, but it's hard to study the word of God being Catholic. You know what I mean? Because it's just like there's not really and with all the sacraments and stuff like that, it kind of takes away from, I think, so much of the Bible. And for me, like I said, I love reading, I love history, and I'm very religious. The Bible's like kind of everything to me. It kind of fits a lot of it checks a lot of boxes for me. So that's why I kind of gravitate towards more towards that.
How has this impacted the way you coach and train with your athletes?
Well, I definitely swear a lot less than I did. I mean, I was pretty bad. Um, but with swearing, I think there are times it makes sense to swear in life if you don't mean bad. I mean, like if somebody's going for a PR on a back squat and you smack their back and you're like, let's effing go. Like that's a little bit different than saying, man, what the F is going on, man? Like, and it's a totally different feel. So
Actually, I have a unique perspective on swear words. If you're talking about like in the sense of like profane language, I can use regular words as profanity. And like you said, use swear words as encouragement. So like I wanted to interrupt to say like I agree with like that
mhm.
resonance more about the purpose of the word than
Yeah.
necessarily the word itself.
Yeah, I've talked with some people about this before, but the thing with that is it's like as a Christian, like we both are, right? We should be ultimately living a life that when other people see us, they question, why am I not a Christian? Right? So if I'm claiming to do all this and I'm swearing like crazy, a non-believer that might actually push them away from the faith. So that's why, watching your tongue, I think, is important. And in the Bible references, like a lot of times what you comes out of your mouth is in your heart too. So like if I have all this anger built up, I'm probably going to swear. Letting things go, and just living better will help me talk better ultimately. But yeah, I would say that. I would say just having like more empathy to kids and stuff, like when they're not doing like exactly what I tell them to do. I'm a pretty big stickler with stuff, but like it was like the other day I was like this one kid came and I like was on him during this lift. Like it looked like he never lifted before or whatever. And I was just like, dude, like, like just riding him for an hour in the weight room. Okay. And I do that for his benefit, right? It doesn't do nothing for me. I tell people as a coach, if I'm getting mad, it's because I messed something up, right? I shouldn't be getting mad at anything that you're doing. You know what I mean? Like it's my job to coach you. But if I put on the workout barbell bent over row for a whole football team, and when I go in the weight room and I didn't realize there were 3 barbells in there, and we have 50 dudes, I'm gonna get mad, and but it's my fault, right? But referencing that kid, like in the next day, I'm getting there in the morning, and he's like I'm walking in and his like grandpa's dropping him off. He gets out of the back seat and he walks into the weight room. I'm like thinking, man, this kid's like in ninth grade, like grandpa dropping him off and he's just coming in. So, so like I thought, man, you should probably but I think I do a good job of when I do that with somebody, the next time I'll build them up a ton. Like, hey buddy, last time, like, and I'll, and that gives sometimes me an opportunity to talk to them a little bit more too, so I would say that yeah, I would say those are probably the main things for me, just becoming a little bit more spiritual, just seeing the world a little bit different. Like, I think that, when you're living for a purpose that isn't your own gain, you wake up happier, right? You know what I mean? It doesn't, if your day doesn't go perfect, it doesn't affect you as much, you know what I mean? Because hopefully everything I do is, I always pray that I'm using the tools God given me to glorify him, right? Some days I think I do a better job of that, but um I would say those are probably the main two things for me.
What is what is the hardest part with kids or college or pro level because they happen at every level where they struggle to buy in and they don't necessarily realize the full value of the training that you're giving them.
I think kids don't buy in when you're not fully bought into them. I think that a lot of coaches, they want buy-in. They want these kids to work really hard. They want their kids to run through a wall for them, but they will not do it for them. And I think human beings are really good at identifying that, especially kids. I tell my kids all the time, when I blow my whistle, you stop talking. It's out of respect for me. So if I blow my whistle, you're still talking, you're disrespecting me. And I think that it's evident when I do that. That's a pretty good way to find out if people respect you or not, right? If you tell them to do something, and I think that just I don't know. I mean, buying in that's like the hot word, right? And like, how do I get buy-in, or how do I, it's. I think you have to know your players, and I think they have to know you ultimately care. You know what I mean? I think they have to, like I said, I told my players the one day, actually, when I was a strength coach up at Youngstown, I like walked in the weight room one day, and I wore earrings. We're not allowed to wear earrings. That was one of my rules. I was had the wrong shorts on. We were supposed to be wearing black. I was like wearing red. I had like a do-rag on or something, like as a joke. And I like walked in a little bit late. I'm like, does it look like I care to you? Just does this look like I care? I'm violating a bunch of rules, right? They're like, no. I'm like, so when you do it, it's pretty obvious I don't think you care, So I think that the more you can get people to understand that, the better off you are too. I think a lot of coaches struggle with that. I don't know. In your experience, what do you think?
So I always say, like, when you're presenting something to someone up front, it's always hard to show value, right? Like you talk about mental health, physical health, faith and different things at a surface level, everybody can generally understand, yeah, if I do this, this is probably good for me. But I always say, like, with like that buy-in piece, like I always say, like, spend 1 week with me, you're going to be bought in. You're going to
Yeah.
understand, you're going to receive the inherent value. Now, I 100% could not agree more with people can figure out in the snap of a fingers whether or not you care about them.
Yeah.
And I'll always say to the day I die, that is what matters most.
Mm-hmm.
To truly care about someone. That's when you can coach someone hard. If someone knows that you inherently care about them, the person, and not just the value that they can extract from you, instantly you're going to get some level of commitment and buy-in, and that's only going to deepen and strengthen the more time you spend together because it can't be faked. You cannot fake genuine care for someone else.
That's what my high school basketball coach used to say. He said, until you reach into a kid's chest and grab his heart, then you can coach him. I mean, just talking with them and giving them the basics is, I just, especially with the way it is nowadays, like kids are so stimulated. I think that anything you can do with them in person to like look them in the eye and tell them like, look, I think one other thing too is like just individually meeting with them, even if it's for 10 seconds, like after a lift or after practice. Hey, I noticed you've been working harder. I appreciate that. Like just little stuff like that. I mean, it goes such a long way because they're not getting that kind of talk a lot, you know? Um, but yeah, I just think it's, they don't care how much you know till, they know how much you care. Right. And it doesn't matter if you're the best strength coach, football coach, whatever in the world. If you're not willing to let them know you and get them to know, I mean, but honestly though, there's some people who are just terrible people and are good coaches too. So, it's hard to say what way is always right, but I do think one main point of both sides is you treat everybody the same. So if you're going to be an MFer, man, you do it to everybody, they're cool with that. But if you're only going to call out the little fat kid who can't plank, and when your best player can't plank and his butt's in the air, and you call him out, then no one's going to respect you. So I think ultimately treating everybody the same is pretty important too.
Now, with the treating everybody the same, different people respond to different types of coaching. How do you cusp some of that while maintaining that same standard of expectation of this is what we're going to do, but maybe or applying the message differently?
Yeah, well, I think it's, when you first meet kids, it's treat everybody the same regardless, right? Or teams, or it doesn't have to always be kids. I keep saying that, and then it's when you get to know them. Well, first of all, you have to be aware that you have to get to know them, right? and constantly be working on that yourself. And you don't really like work on it as much as you just pay attention to stuff, right? You pay attention to the days where you were harder, you were easier, you were more demanding, you let them freelance, right? And seeing what athletes picked up on what. Now, if you're like me and you have 80, 90 football players, that's challenging, right? But you do have to try your absolute best to do it. And I think one way you can start that is by, like, what I do is I always treat the best players the worst, no question. I could care less how they learn or how they like it. You know what I mean? Like, it's this kid's getting called out constantly. He has a bunch of D1 offers. Okay, I'm going to make it a point to make it super hard for him. And I think that gets a lot of the people's respect on the team too before you know them. But I always try to push those people harder. I think too, like, just talking, with people, other people in their life is important too. If you have the access to that, hey, what motivates, Jimmy or whatever, I think that's beneficial too. But for me, it's all football. So it's always hard because it's a lot of people. It's a lot of people.
Yeah, no, football's tough. And in general, too, like I always kind of segment football players into really like four groups. It's like you have your star players, you have your people who are contributors, main contributors, you have your support backups, and then guys that are just there.
Hmm.
And learning how to deal with all those personalities to get people to buy in, again, going back to that word, to one specific goal is really challenging for any individual.
Yeah.
And it takes a team. And where I feel for either programs at the collegiate level that don't have the resources, or programs at the collegiate and professional level that don't care, or programs at the high school level that don't have the resources to have everybody in place, is it makes your job and the head coach's job really, really difficult to really get under one coordinated messaging.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
And when I look at like everyone talks about like player led teams, well, players also need to be guided, and like the leaders of a team need to be guided. And I think that there's incredible value in being the hardest on your best players so that the rest of the team knows nobody is above the standard. Because I've been on teams where the best players can get away with things, and there's absolutely an element of talent, equals tolerance. And
Hmm.
the lower you fall on that totem pole, the higher your character or whatever needs to be. But for me, there is a baseline minimum where it's like there can be anything below this line. I don't care who you are, what you are on this team, it is unacceptable.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it, honestly. I mean, that's the thing is like it's so different from like pro, college, high school, and then if you there's probably a lot maybe people that'll watch us that are even coaching peewees, right? So it's like it's so hard because some of the kids don't even want to be there. You know what I mean? Like even high school kids, like we have
There's
kids on our
college
team.
kids that don't want to be there.
Yeah, there are. There are. I mean, there's NFL guys who don't want to be there, but they just happen to be freaks and they're good at football. You know what I mean? Like, so it's definitely a challenge. But that's why you see more and more people actually starting to value it. People caring about it more. You see these people on staff that it's almost their job to just be there for kids and stuff like that, and just help them transition a little bit easier in college or high school. But it's definitely not easy. And I think a lot of it comes really from the head coach of the sport too. You know what I mean? The strength coach can only do as much as what the head coach demands, you know. Um, and you never want to, like, as a strength coach, step on the head coach's toes and stuff like that. And even if you think there's different things you could do better, you could talk to him about it, but you're not going to talk to the team about it, right? So you're always at their mercy too. But if you're fortunate to work with good ones like I have, that's really never been an issue. So
From a structure standpoint, when you're organizing plans and you're really helping these athletes organize their lives as well, particularly, as they progress through and get to the collegiate, the NFL level, or professional sports level in general. I always say that there's this element of obsession that needs to take place for the best, right? Now, some guys are obviously freakishly talented, can overcome whatever to a certain extent. However, with that obsession level, usually structure follows. So when you're structuring, how much of a belief do you have around like just that straight rigid, I'm gonna bust below the word here, but making everything as rigid as possible? Like, do you believe in having flexibility, or does everything for you have to be this is when you do this, this, and
Are you
this?
saying more in terms of like a general like
A general
plan for
plan.
an athlete,
Yeah, so like a plan for an athlete.
not like a strength and conditioning program?
No, general plan.
Yeah, I mean, so much of that is their personality type. You know what I mean? Like I've had some of the hardest workers come through my facility that are just great kids that weren't like structure guys. You know what I mean? Like that they will do anything you ask for when they're there, but they're not always super on time. Like or they're not always going to follow their diet specifically, but you know they'll get the majority of the work done. You know, you'll have kids that are just die hard structure guys too, right? You know what I mean? So I think that's a loaded question because I think that you have to ultimately me personally, I'm a structure guy. If I could have every single thing during my weeks scheduled out, including, you know, freaking Call of Duty, you know what I mean? Everything in my week to get my week done, that's how I would be. But I'm learning as I get older because I try to get other people to do this like with me so I can, yeah, because as you get older, you don't see your friends as much anymore. So you're like, hey, let's play video games Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. And it's like, no one's here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like people aren't really like that, man, you know? So I think putting people into an environment that may be different than what they would learn from would be, I don't know if the right word is detrimental, but it might not set them up for success. I mean, but you look at things like, you know, the military, for instance, you know, that's going to be very structured and it's going to produce results, no doubt. You know, so it's like you could say that. It's like, well, everybody could be better with structure. What would it but it's true, but sports are a little bit different, you know. Um but, you know, I'm all about structure. So that I'm more talking about like if I was training Andrew McCutcheon than I am talking about if I was training the Pitt football team. Right. So say Kutch wants to say, and I'm going to make all this up, but just for the sake of this conversation, like say Kutch, he likes waking up, he wakes up at noon every day. Um, why am I going to make him, hey, no, we're going to be on a structured diet. You're going to wake up at 7 a.m. every day and you're going to eat this and you're going to lift at this, like when he doesn't like doing that. You know what I mean? Like, but now if it's a multitude of people on a team, you have to have some sort of structure like that, right? And you have to have a winning culture. You have to have structure. You can't just let everyone come and lift wherever you want because, hey, man, like it's whatever. Like it's whatever's best for you. Like that doesn't fit either, you know. So on an individual level, if it's able to happen, I think it's an opportune time to structure it an in structure way. But if it's a team, I think it would have to be, you know, that's kind of the way I look at it. What about you?
So when I look at the excessive rigidity, I want to get the word right. Goodness gracious, rigidity. That's the right word, right?
I
Rigidity.
think, yeah, that's above my pay grade there.
I think that when it's over excessive, it can be detrimental. But again, it goes back to the individual,
Well,
right?
the thing is like I don't even know like I don't know what over excessive is because
Right.
like you know what I mean. Like it's such like a vague thing. It's like is over excessive giving a person a diet to follow and setting up their training every day at a certain time, like you know what I mean? Or are you saying like because I mean everybody needs that, but I'm just saying more like I don't know. I train like, you know, Sky more this off season. It's like there's days where, you know, Sky, you know, he'll be the first one to admit he don't go to bed real early. You know what I mean? So he would want to come in a little bit later, and that's fine. But then other days he would. So it's like, you know what I mean? He's a good player. Like so I don't want him to. I don't want to sacrifice Sky's sleep, which is very very important to have a rigid schedule for him. You know what I mean? So I guess I just it's hard to say what's actually a rigid schedule and what's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think there's degrees of this,
Yeah.
right? And so when I look at it just from like a general perspective, and for someone who is looking for some type of guidance of like how habitual do I need to be, how routine do I need to be to maximize or optimize myself, I look at it from a sense of what's too much structure, what's not enough, and I examine my own life and I look at my own diet patterns. Like for example, before this, you gave me a cookie, right? And normally I don't eat cookies, right? Because it's not a part of my diet schedule. It doesn't fit into what I want to do. Like, for example, me eating this cookie, right, could be
Stressing you out.
exactly. And that's where I would say, like, that's an excessively rigid routine. If I have a cookie, I'm going to be like, oh no, now I'm going to be fat. Now
It
I'm
was
not going to
actually
do
a
what I
test
want. It was a test.
and you failed.
And I failed. So it's like, to that extent, it's like, okay, I had a cookie today. Well, now tomorrow I just won't have a cookie.
Yeah, right.
Right. And, just like, and so like finding what works for you. For some people, they can't have any sweets.
Right.
Right. Or they can't have a drink of alcohol, or they can't, stay up past their normal bedtime.
Mhm.
Right. And because like you look at like different studies, and where I get frustrated in the space, and I used to be like this, to be honest. So I'm frustrated with former self and then a lot of current people, is they talk about like biohacking and all these other things where they're like, you have to go to bed at the same time every day and you have to wake up at the same time every morning. And while in principle I agree, right, and that helps me with my own health, sometimes it's okay. Stay up an hour later and watch the Netflix episode you want to watch.
Yeah, right.
Right. Stay up an
Sure.
hour later, play the video game that you want to watch.
Yeah.
Now, don't make it a habitual habit where you're constantly doing these things that distract from what you overall want to achieve. But having some like randomness or flexibility, I do think is advantageous.
And to be honest with you, man, I think the best organizers do that, right? You know what I mean? Like, how many times have you seen a college football program randomly one day they don't take they set up a really hard lift, Friday's going to be real hard, and they take them to a swimming pool or something like that, where you're like almost like the best structure is by structuring even that stuff. You know what I mean? Like
Structuring the randomness.
yeah. I think that that's, for me, what I would think would work best. That would work best in my life as well.
Now, I will say for myself, like, and again, this is unique to me, it may be different for other people's, but it does shape the way I believe. Is I do believe people, for the most part, who are routine oriented are more successful, and who
Yeah.
can control elements of those, for lack of a better term, vices, where it's like, hey, I don't go to sleep early, I stay up late, right? Those people who can curve that and be like, okay, I am going to go to bed an hour later than normal, and so that way I can wake up earlier and get more done. I do believe that those people end up being more successful. One of my favorite entrepreneurs always says, like, I've never met a loser who gets up every day and works up at 5 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And not even in the sense of like success of dollar amount, but in terms of like personal fulfillment in life. Right. And I think that that's like an important piece, is like when you can be structured and routine in some sense, to where 85% of the time I'm up at 5 a.m. working out, or I follow my diet routine 85% of the time. It's a made up number, but to get the point across, like when you are that person and that's part of who you are, you're going to be successful.
Yeah, and I think too that people that might not like admit they're structured and they're random, their randomness has a structure to it if they're successful. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, maybe they do go to bed late and sleep in, but it's consistent, right?
And it's part of the routine.
Yeah, it's part of their whatever their routine is. And I think you see a lot more of that in, like, art, musicians, people like that, with like kind of like that need like that flowing artistic brain kind of thing, and you never know what's going to motivate you, kind of thing. But I would just say, for me, it's just like thinking it through now. It's like anybody that just doesn't have any sort of plan, that's probably not a good. But if you can reference that you don't have a plan, then you kind of have a plan. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're even thinking that way, I guess, you know what I mean? Because some people just go through life with no real rhyme or reason on why they do things or this or that. And I don't think that's the correct way to accomplish what you could accomplish.
Have you found that most of your best athletes have some type of like routine that they follow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I would say anybody as successful I know is on some sort of routine for sure. Um, and it's like that your whole life. Anybody you knew, had some sort of structure. You would see him at the gym, you would see him at this, you'd see him at that, like it positive things and putting things into their life that are going to point them the right direction for sure.
How quickly can you determine if a player has the it factor?
When you say it, like, are you
Like
saying like
you,
physical or mental?
just in general, it can be both. Like,
Well, physical, um, watching them warm up is pretty important to me. Well, watching them warm up, you could really check both boxes. So, like, you watch people warm up, are they taking the warm up dead serious? Usually, if you take the warm up dead serious, you're pretty serious. You know what I mean? Like, so regardless of if you suck or not at sports, if you warm up, you're good. You're probably going to be in some sort of way valuable to the team. You know what I mean? Whether it's you're good in practice, you get good grades, or those are the bottom of the. I mean, that's not bottom of the barrel, but when it comes to like actually like making you win a football game, or being a valuable part of the team. I mean, someone who could get better grades, pick up on stuff quick, you know what I mean, be a valuable point in practice, whatever. And then if they do that and they can move really good, right? When you watch someone do high knees, butt kicks, broad jumps, power skips, um, side shuffle, how they look and just how they kind of pop off the ground. And you could use that for uh a fifth grader, right? Or you can use that as if you go down to St. Vincent and watch like the best of the best, and they're all going to be freaks. But if you want to know who the biggest freaks are, whether it's mentally, like locked in, or the best athlete freaks, you could just do the same thing there too. I do that a lot. Like when I first get around a team, and I try to do a really good job of coaching them on how they should look and what they should look like when they do stuff, how quickly they pick up on stuff. Like I talked about Kutch earlier. I mean, that dude, if you tell him to do something, he can do it good immediately. It doesn't matter what it is. And you can just, and it was like probably 4 or 5 years ago, I had him work out with our draft prep guys. And it was like they're all their first days at the indoor out there. And like I was teaching them how to do I don't know. I don't know. It might have been butt kicks correctly or something like that people mess up a lot. And yeah, I told it to him. He does it. And all the other guys don't do it. I'm like, I brought him in. I'm like, guys, do you see? I just said this. And he did it good immediately. I said, he's played now. I don't think at that point it might have been 12 years, whatever, in the MLB. That's why. Now, obviously, he's a great baseball player and stuff, but just having the ability to do stuff like that, um, that's really hard to find people that can do that. And you mentioned you're that kind of guy earlier when we were talking about the wrestling. So yeah, so you're on the same page. But yeah, I mean, I would say watching people warm up for me. I mean, and I think that's pretty surefire way. Especially just like I said, I mean, it's when you see someone dead serious warming up, it's nice to see. You don't see it very often. So pay attention to that if you're a coach watching this.
Why do you think he is that way? Like, like where do you think it comes from?
I've been going through this battle lately. The funny you brought that up because I think about this all the time. And this is we're going to talk about him, but I'll talk about me for a second. I don't know like I don't know why we are the way we are in anything. Cuz like I think about like so why am I so like like why did I like why do I love reading books so much? Right? Nobody in my life reads books. Like, you ever wonder, like, why? Like, what happened to make that happen, right? And for him, it's like, I really just think it's like a God's gift kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because you just, now you could say with Kutch, like his dad played football in college actually for a little bit and is close with his dad. I'm sure he's had a lot of great baseball coaches that you might say he's been around some great coaches or he had some great teammates who he learned off of. I mean, you could ask him too, and maybe he would have a different answer. But for me, it's like he's probably just like that. Like he's smart. Like his son Steele is like smart. Like, like he's like a little guy. He puts stuff together really quickly and it just picks up. I just think it's just, I don't know, man. I mean, what do you think? I mean, like why are you like,
I can't state enough how much genetics plays a role in everything.
but to say that is like, I don't have anybody in my family like that thinks like I do. I don't think, or maybe they just have never pursued that.
I'll unpack it here. So I'm going to go off on a little tangent. I'm going to do my best to articulate this as clearly as possible. So when I say like genetics, right, there's an inheritance component, right? But that inheritance goes on like generational lineage. Okay. But there's also just like the genetics of, we never know at what point in time something's going to pique our interest and drive our curiosity. And so there was a psychologist that I had on here, Dr. Julie Gerner. You would love her stuff. You should check her out. She's phenomenal, but one of the questions I asked her was like that like obsessive component of like super success elite people, like where does it come from, right? And a lot of that just is like in their nature, right? They're born with this just drive to figure things out, and it may only show itself in one domain of life. It's not necessarily that it transitions into other areas, but how you find out, oh, I love reading, or how things change, right? Is like the receptors of when I have an experience, the type of gratification it gives me both immediately and in the long term. So whether or not that you had readers in your family, you likely had people who had some type of addictive personality where they experienced something and they loved it and they kept doing it. And so for you, it may have just been
Yeah.
that learning element that you then become obsessed with learning. Like, holy smokes, like this really grabbed my attention. This pulled me into it. It sucked me in. I liked the way that that felt. I liked not only the immediate gratification, but the long-term benefit of it. And then it works and comes together. And that's like through a life of experiences, right? Both taught and untaught, just experience learning, right? We're able to kind of form and shape these different components of ourselves. And then what I ultimately love to do with athletes, right, is to intentionally build these things. And so we're talking about engineering that identity or engineering who you want to be, right? It's first, most of us go through life without the intentionality of knowing what we want to do or have any concept of who we want to be, both from a value character perspective or from an achievement based perspective. And so to actually spend time in that space, asking yourself questions, reflecting, viewing people that you aspire to be or who have influenced you in a positive way, and really extracting from that those key things that are important to you, right? And that's like one of the first things I do is like think of someone who's impacted you either, from a faith based or from like a mentor space or from just like, hey, from afar, like I really value like what that person did or their impact on me, and then try and define it. And then that way you can begin to look in your own life and attract yourself to things in your life and your day to day that are going to pull you to that. And genetically, we're going to be wired and attracted to different things. And so I think all the time about like even differences in my life. So like when I was a competitive athlete, the last thing I ever wanted to do was go on a walk or go on a hike. If I wasn't training
Yeah,
or
right.
practicing, I wanted to be chilling. But now that my career is over, I cannot wait to go on a walk. I love going on hikes. I love sightseeing. And so like the transitional phase for me was, now that I have the energy, like I'm going to be attracted to physical activities where now I also get the aesthetics of it. It puts me in a state of nature where I can be calm and really, we talk about, vices or like demons and like, Satanists facing when we wake up in the morning. One thing for me is always had just like a nasty temper. But when I'm out in nature and I'm on a walk or I'm walking with my wife or on the phone talking to someone or listening to a podcast while I walk, it's an opportunity for me to really just settle my heart rate down and relax while I'm still getting physical activity. And so I wouldn't know that without asking myself questions, reflecting, and then going out and trying and experiencing new things. And so I think we're constantly in this evolution of self. And what I say, it's either dynamic or fluid. It's either dynamic, I'm making the active changes, or fluid, people are changing my experiences for me.
Yeah. That's really interesting stuff. Because I always wonder that. It's just the same. It's like same thing. It's like you could see people who are just, they become losers and they're surrounded by winners. It's like, maybe they picked up on something that a winner was doing that was a loser tendency and gravitated towards that, or like, you know what I mean? It's just, it's so, it's so crazy, man. You know, what makes us become who we are and all that. And I think a big determinant is the people you surround yourself with. I mean, everybody knows that, you know. Um,
I look at someone like Kutch though, and realistically, at a perfect point in time, did his genetics and skill set align with a time period that highly values sports? In 150 to 1,000 years, if sports are no longer valued, everyone who has that genetic gift that can be really good at a sport just
mhm,
may not be perceived as valuable. Right. And
mhm,
so I think that's an extremely important component for someone who may not be an athlete or isn't the most athletic when they look at something, right, and view perceived successful people is understand that we're in a point in time in history where sports are just super prevalent and
right.
valued.
That's a good point.
And it's like their skill set just perfectly aligned at this point in time where it's like, hey, this person's like super successful. But people who have that obsessive trait, they just have to figure out now where their physical tool set lies.
Yeah. You would think a lot of them, guys with that, kind of thing might, even have gravitated towards like being like warriors or samurais or like just in different things in the history of the world that kind of like embodied both of those things being important too. If it was in their culture, you know.
And that's where I say, like, again, like understanding those values, traits, characteristics that you want to embody. The reality is you can pick those up and apply them intentionally to different areas in life. It's not always going to be 100% successful, but when something becomes a function of who you are, it's going to apply in other ways. I'd be willing to bet Andrew McCutcheon post career is going to be awesome at whatever he chooses because that's become a part of who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I love that discipline motivation conversation because I don't care what anyone says. And again, this is attack on my former self as well, where I've evolved is without motivation, there nothing will ever get done. There has to be some higher pulling power that's driving you to do something. You
Yeah.
cannot just straight willpower grit your way to everything.
Right.
Like, there has to be something that pulls you higher. Like I do not care. There is no way I would be able to grit and will my way to playing an instrument. I have no desire. I do not care to play an instrument. I do not have fun doing it. So like my motivation isn't there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I said earlier about like just whatever gifts you are given. And I tell young athletes that all the time too. Like the earlier you can find out these things in your life, imagine how much more you can accomplish, man. You know what I mean? Like imagine if you knew what you knew now and you're 15 years old. Now, that's rare, right? Because I mean, you're so smart. But but like, there are certain circumstances where, that happens. And that's why those, dudes end up probably like a Mark Zuckerberg and people like that just think beyond their years and understand maybe their talents and what they're really good at and their success. Some people think it's lucky, but it's just not. It's just learning things earlier in life and applying, like you said, like your some of them main gifts you were given, finding that area where you can use them and just putting your foot down. I think that's ultimately what everybody's goal should be.
I think the challenge with like young people, not that I think what I know is a challenge, one of the many with younger people is the ability to have complex thought. I don't think Mark Zuckerberg at 15 knew that he was going to start Facebook.
Right.
But what he did know or ran into was I'm pretty smart. I
Mm-hmm.
figure things out really quickly. I'm drawn to solving whatever type of solutions. And I know at some point, and then also I'm sure through some type of mentorship or education or teaching, he learned I could create solutions for problems and turn that into a business.
Yeah. Right.
And so that's where there's that perfect storm of mixing between genetics, between maturity and self realization. I mean, think about the number of people that could have been super successful if they just had a sense of maturity. Like, think about one thing I struggle with is like thinking about the stories of all the people who made a bad decision out of immaturity that ruined their future. That
Yeah.
the future CEOs, the future professional athletes that made one bad decision that resulted in, you know, a death that resulted in them permanently disabling themselves. Or
Mm-hmm.
in that scenario, But that's where it's like it's so complex. And part of the reason I went with the rebrand to the playbook is at any stage in life to give you the playbook, the resources, the accessibility, the stories to understand at any point in life, you can pick up and start define and create your playbook for your own life.
Oh yeah.
And the hard part with the young guys though too is it's got to be simpler questions. Like,
Yeah.
what do you like doing? And it can't just be sitting around, do nothing, play video games.
Right.
Right. And just like asking questions that pique their interest in, some athletes that don't talk as much, it's a little bit more challenging. Right. And that's where coaching comes in, but it's not easy. There's got to be a self-reflect. There's got to be a self-awareness, self-actualization piece.
Yeah. And two, from a coaching perspective, how many opportunities do you get to change them too?
Yeah. Oh,
You
for
know what I mean?
sure.
And that's the hard thing,
Also, think about the number of dumb athletes that have walked in and you're
Oh
like,
yeah.
it's
Yeah, there's
it's tough.
definitely a lot of dumb. I mean, I was a dumb one, and that's why I like to think that I'm good at my job, is because I can talk to the idiots. I can
You're
motivate
not dumb
them.
though.
Well, I mean, dumb. I don't mean like intellectually dumb. More like I just thought like, this isn't really that important. Like, I'm gonna be good regardless. Does every rep matter? Not really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I just have different things I can say to that demographic because and what I do. I don't hang my hat on all the kids that are already love the weight room getting stronger. Like you have to hang your hat on getting people who wouldn't have gotten stronger without you. Um, and it's sometimes challenging, but that's the challenge. It's getting to motivate those kids and finding ways to do it. And we referenced a little bit of that earlier, but that's definitely where the money's at. And the best people in any career can do that in a leadership position.
Talk to me a little bit about that piece where you talk about, hey, like, does every rep matter? No, I'm going to be good regardless. How do you reason with those people?
I always say, well, what rep matters and what rep doesn't matter. Like, so you don't know, right? You don't know what rep is going to matter. So it's like it's if you have to do 8 reps and you do 7, the 8th rep could have been the rep that you got stronger on, right? And I think that's always a funny way to get them to understand. Um, and me personally, one way I get kids to train hard is I'm a big believer in testing them. Like, so we test a lot, but I tell everybody, like all the kids, like we test a lot because I want to give you the opportunity to showcase every month all the work that you're putting in. And I want the coaches to be able to see that. Right. And it's also used as a way to get them to come because if you test, no one wants to test worse the next month. Right. You know what I mean? Month after month, if you're going to be going. So I think that that's another way that I like to use, um, because, when you have success, you're going to want to have more success. I think one way you could fail as a strength coach, sports performance coach is by never showcasing that what you do is good and it actually makes people better. Because we referenced buy-in earlier. I mean, what better buy-in is there than that, right? That when they come, they get better. But it's hard to test them out all the time. It's a challenge, right? You have to have a lot of moving parts and a lot of logistics have to work out in your favor and everything. But I think that that's one way to definitely get buy-in and get the people like how I used to be to understand things better. Like for me, like too, I didn't really understand that if I squatted more, and my dad was a bodybuilder, right? So I grew up lifting weights, but I didn't really like to because, right, my dad was a bodybuilder and he was my dad and he told me to lift, so I didn't want to. That's just how it works, right? But like, now when you explain to a young, skinny, really good athlete, look, you want to jump higher, right? They all do. You want to run faster? You want to score more touchdowns? Like, hell yeah, I want to score more touchdowns. Well, if you squat more, but say it's January and say you max squat and you do 225 and you squat 315 in the summer, you have a better chance of scoring more touchdowns. There's no doubt, right? You will jump higher. There's no doubt. You know what I mean? Like that's nice to hear rather than just some big strength coach that, I don't even know strength coach, a guy who just runs the lifting program telling you, hey, you gotta lift, Grossetti. You ain't gonna get you gotta get strong. Like, but if you have somebody who's like built more like an athlete, saying like, look, buddy, this is how this works. This you want to play college football, right? Yeah, well, you're gonna have to squat then. You better do it now. It's pretty important. These are all the benefits. And talking to a kid that way, I think you're gonna get a lot better response from him. You know.
Do you ever get like multiple balks with an athlete to the point where you just get super direct, like, "Hey, you're missing the beat X, Y, or Z"? Like, what is your breaking point when
Uh,
you're conversing with an
I would
athlete?
say, yeah. I mean, sometimes with draft prep, you'll get that. Draft prep's hard because you get a bunch of guys who they think they're going to do better than they are, right? And when you come in and you pre-test them, and it's my job to get them better than they were, right? When they come in, but some it's very unrealistic if somebody comes in and broad jumps 8'2" in their pre-test and they think they're going to run a 4.4. It's just, you know what I mean? But people believe that, um, a lot of people believe that, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately for me. uh, but you'll have that a little bit with them. It's like, you have to do this. Wow, and it's like, well, this is what you did. This is how you got to get there. Like if this is what you want to do, like this isn't going to be easy. And some people don't understand that, and I think a lot of the guys that don't understand it just like they probably never understood it, even in college, because you got to think a lot of them are coming from good colleges and their strength coaches are all good guys and motivators and know what they're talking about in terms of programming and getting guys, to generate more power and run faster. Like, it's that's probably the hardest thing. So you have people come back and be like, well, I don't think I'm going to do that. And then, you get in the point where it's like, well, you want to just run a 40 right now, buddy? I'll show you what you can run. Like, like you don't want to do that, but you could get to that point, I guess, if it gets real bad. But,
We talked about this last podcast, but I think it's really prevalent with what you just said there. Enabling athletes too much. And the athletes who, because of talent, we could probably think of one specific person, we'll name this person, who was in our last session who just was never there on time, didn't work hard, didn't do what he was supposed to do. But because they are naturally talented or gifted, their coaches just let them play anyway. Where do you feel that talent tolerance needs to have that line drawn? And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier today too, but like where you can't just let an athlete get away with whatever because they're talented.
yeah, I think you never can. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, um, I mean, I don't want to talk in absolutes, right? Never. I mean, if you have, there's some freaks out there, right? You know what I mean? But like most people, I mean, yeah, I get a lot of guys during draft prep, and this will kind of reference what you're talking about is they're just terrible. Like they don't know how to they don't know how to lift, they don't know how to run, they don't know how to come on time, they don't eat right. Like, and it's like, who was your coach? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like who, well, and it's hard to say that their coach, it's not like a knock on the coach because I don't really, it's just a weird situation. It's like, I don't know how people could come in like that sometimes. And then they think they're going to play in the NFL. It's like, what? You know what I mean? Like, now I've had some guys come in like that, but they're monster freaks and it's a little bit different. But if you're like a middle of the road athlete, like, and you don't have those traits and some sort of structure like we referenced earlier, I mean, you don't got much of a shot, man. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just the facts. So did I answer the question there? Kind of.
Yeah, you did.
It's hard. It's hard from what I do because you get guys and I can try to motivate you for a couple months, but it's like, I mean, dude, there's you. This is their whole life. Like we said before, like you're a coach. You didn't. They grew up watching their dad wake up and eat Fruit Loops and you know what I mean? Like every morning. So like why would you eat healthy, right? You know what I mean? So and you're just gonna just because I train NFL guys, I tell you to eat healthy, you're gonna do it. Like it's something you saw and it's ingrained in you, and you kind of talked about that earlier. You know, it's tough, you know?
I always come back to this athlete and referencing him because it aligns perfectly with the enablement, right? And I look at a guy like Johnny Manziel, and I keep thinking back to his untold Netflix story and how, you know, certain coaches there enabled his behavior because Johnny Manziel came off like a 3-day drinking and drug bender, goes into Tuscaloosa and beats number one ranked Alabama. Not watching film, practicing drunk, drinking the night before a game, but just comes in essentially hungover and lights up Alabama. You could argue, though, long term of his life, you failed him because you didn't. And I think there's deeper level things that he goes through that contributed to that. But like the coaches of that staff, because it gave them wins in the record column,
Right.
enabled that behavior to the point where it became self-destructive to the point where the rest of his professional career is now gone. And I think about, and now you obviously don't know how many people tried to reach him. So like I'm speaking without fully knowing, with some ignorance in this, but to let someone play. And I think about like the people I work with, and if I were to run a team, like you at some point, if you're a coach and if you're a coach listening to this, you have to think about the player. Goes back to caring about the person, right? And where you have to put your foot down and say, this can't keep going because future you is going to hate your current self for your current behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone can do that. And it's hard for certain people if the athlete doesn't respect you, but that line has to be drawn somewhere.
Yeah, those are hard situations, man. Like I've been in this, not with Manziel, but with people. It's so much easier said than done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like and I'm not saying I've been in exact situations like that, but it's tough, man, right? You know what I mean? Like especially it's like, you do so much for people and like you get to the point where you're like I can't do anymore, kind of too. But like I have a belief on that. Like somebody told me before, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. But you could sit there with him for as long as it takes till he understands how important it is to drink the water. You know what I mean? Like so, and the patience that you have in those situations ultimately determines quite a bit about you as a person. I don't know how much it determines you as a coach because it is your job. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it's right what they did, obviously. I mean, you don't let your quarterback go out and get wasted and come play. I mean, I'm not saying that, but maybe they were doing a lot behind the scenes, right? Maybe he was just didn't even, I mean, he probably didn't even care. To be honest with you, I don't even know if Johnny Manziel, do you think he even regrets half of that stuff? You know what I mean? So if he doesn't regret it now, I mean, he might. I mean, I don't know Johnny Manziel, but if he don't regret it now, you think he was listening back then? He could have cared less. You know what I mean? He was probably smoking a cigarette on the sideline like Johnny Unitas or was that remember that picture? Like but yeah, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. I mean that's a tough situation to be in, man. Now of course if it's like a high school kid and they're drinking, I mean that's totally different than a Johnny Manziel, what was he, 22 years old or something like that? You know what I mean? It's just like people live their own life, and if it's not in like a direct violation with a team rule that you had, it's such a gray area. Your job is depending on it, but you want to be a good coach, but you want to win, but it's just, you know what I mean? Like
And that's the real life scenarios people have to go through.
right. Yeah, it's hard. And I think that, and I say this all the time, so many people get scrutinized for things like that. Like so we're referencing these coaches so I don't even know who they are. But I always say this about myself. You could say, Terry, someone might say, "Oh, Grossetti performance, they don't even this doesn't that," and they could say something negative about me, right? But let me tell you something. I didn't want to. I didn't. Even, I started a business because I was good at strength and conditioning. I'm not a master. I'm not a master businessman. I'm not a master marketer. I'm a strength coach, man, and I was good at it. So people wanted to train with me. The business became really big. I train a lot of people. I have a lot of people that work for me. I don't know how to manage the people that work for me that good. I don't know how freaking taxes really work that good. I mean, we have an accountant. I don't know my heating and cooling. I'm not a master of my machine breaks. I don't know how to fit like it's like sometimes you judge people for things that you think they know how to do when I never wanted or thought I would ever do that. So like these coaches that coach these people, they were football coaches. So like how would we're talking about like in-depth like psychology of a person. How would they know how to react to him? You know what I mean? Like how would they know the right way? I think about that all the time. People, oh, well, Terry, he never, he's never a GP in Newcastle. He doesn't train. I'm like, well, dude, I'm doing other stuff. Like, sorry, I didn't know this was going to happen. You know what I mean? I don't know. Well, you're not. One of my employees will meet with me. Hey, I think I deserve this, or I'm like, I don't know. Do you? I mean, I'm just I'm going about my life. Like I was a good strength and conditioning coach. I'm very fortunate. I learned from very, very good strength coaches. That's what I like doing. I like training people. I love to train people. I love to be there for athletes. But if you were to ask me something to do with business, like I mean, my business is successful because we're good at strength and conditioning. But like, dude, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know some of this stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how you're supposed to like, yeah, it's just like, how does health insurance work? I don't, it's like, I don't know. Like, it's so funny. And like, yeah, the funniest thing is like in my industry too, it's like, yeah, well, these like other gyms, like they hate you or this or that. It's like, dude, like we're all in the same thing here, dude. Like, what's there to hate? You know what I mean? Like, I always say like, anybody in my field that that is a real guy, I'm friends with him. Right? Because it is what it is. Like, dude, if I don't know you or you don't like me because I train a lot of people or whatever, dude, you're an idiot because I don't I we're doing the same thing. And like I think so many people like look at business like it's like this war. It's like, dude, we're all just trying to make money and get at it and just get this thing done. You know what I mean? Like and work as little as we possibly can and make the most money as you can. So it's like it's funny. I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but it just got me thinking about that. It's funny because you never know, man. You know what I mean? Like it's like you walk into a good restaurant and they have a really good chef, but you go in and the food and the service is terrible, right? Or it's dirt, the bathrooms are dirty, and you're like, I'll never go back there. Meanwhile, the chef made you the best meal of his life, and that's all he knows how to do. It ain't his fault, man. You went there because of him. You know what I mean? Like it's funny, man. I just don't know if a lot of people think that through. That's why I'm a big believer in, and it's never happened to me. Like no one's ever left like a bad like review or whatever. But like I would never leave a bad review anywhere,
Yeah.
dude. It's like, dude, these people are freaking small business. You kidding me, dude? Like I'm on like part of this like. So I live in Zealy and Opal, and it's like I'm on like the Facebook page. These people are like bombing these restaurants. I'm like, dude, like these people are like trying their best. Like they have a high school kid waiting, cleaning the dishes. Sorry it took him longer for you to get you know what I mean? It's like, dude, give him a break, man. You know. But maybe that's one way I became coming closer to God. I think helped me there too, because it became something that I used to like think was so dumb became like funny to me. You know what I mean? It's like this really ain't that serious, man.
In order for me to leave a bad review for anything, it would have to be egregious. Like
Yeah.
it would have to be like over the top egregious. But for the most part, I 100% agree with everything like that you just said.
There's this good restaurant up in Mercer. It's called Talbot's. I don't know the dude, but the dude seems like a rock star. Like there's yin yang, or not yin yang, Wu Tang Clan pictures everywhere. He's like this like white dude. He has like this like cool like menu or whatever, and in the menu it says if you had it says something like this. This isn't exact, but if you had a bad meal, tell me. If you had a good meal, tell everybody. Yeah, what a great quote. You know what I mean? Like that's exactly how it should be. You know what I mean?
I remember during draft prep phase, we were talking while the guys were warming up or whatever, before warm-ups, before they even got there. And someone asked me about a player I had played with who turned out to bust or whatever. And I was just saying, like, hey, I mean, like he was always a good guy, like, good to me. Never would have expected him to run into, this kind of trouble. And then, like, you asked me like a question about like his practice and daily habits. I was like, well, he was, routinely late, didn't really try that hard, like all these different things. And you're like, Colin, you're like, I do the same thing. You're like, I'll try and say people are good people. He's like, but some people are just not good people.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, I think, well, yeah, that's a good way to look at things. I mean, if you do a bunch of bad things, you're not a good person, right? And I brings me back to faith a lot. We talked about that in my Bible study before, and it's like people will say, like, oh, he's a good person, or but he's a it's like, is he a good person? You know what I mean? Like it's just like, what is a good person, right? Like if you like cheat on your wife or something like that, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but at that point you weren't a very good person, right? And it takes a lot to get back from something like that, right? If you were, there's so many different scenarios like that. It's like, dude, if you have traits that have been negative over and over and over again, the writing is on the wall, man. You know what I mean? And like we've all done bad things, right? I mean, I'm the first one to admit I've made a lot of mistakes and hurt a lot of people, and those are things I apologize with them to them personally or to God about, and I fight every day to be a better person. But if you're not doing that and you're continuing to do that, I mean, what kind of guy are you? You know what I mean? Like it's like, come on, man. You know what I mean?
Well, one thing I want to go back to in a more serious note is, and you dealt with this again, every year you deal with this with the training, right? The draft prep guys and battling that unrealistic expectations of like a 40-yard dash. Right. And so for you, when you're training some of these guys, right, how do you work with that unrealistic expectations versus, hey, wanting to have super high goals, right? Like, how do you reason in that space? Because that's one of the more challenging things that you're going to have to deal with is like, hey, these are my unrealistic goals that I want to achieve. And you as the trainer is like, hey, I'm not going to take you from a 4.7 to a 4.3. Like, that's just like not going to happen. So it's like, where do you balance that space of, hey, we want to have really high goals, but in that same breath, like we do have to be realistic.
Um, I think one thing that I've changed in the last couple years is when I have people write down their goals prior, you know, and I'll look through them, and then I'll have conversations with them about what they wrote. Okay, say you have a wide receiver and he comes in and we don't test him on I mean, and to be honest with you, dude, I should test him on a 40 when they come in, but I know in my heart of hearts it's not the right thing to do because they're not going to run fast and it's going to actually put them in a position to potentially get injured, right? They play a whole college football season. Half of them only sprint on game days. They take a week off or a month off in some cases where they're definitely not sprinting, or running fast or lifting hard. And then I would bring them in. And if they were to get injured at that point, that would be devastating for their training. Now, if I did that, that would be great to be able to say, hey, well, yeah, dude, what you wrote down, you wanted to run a 4.5 and you ran a 5 flat, you know? So that's hard for me, but I know it's the right thing to do. When it comes to like a linear speed progression, I mean, who in their right mind would ever run someone on a 40 that's untrained? You know what I mean? You'd have to be insane. But there's people who would do it for that reason, right? And then you could just say, well, I brought him in and you know what I mean? Then you're going to fight that battle, but that would help you in that argument. But what I've done in recent years has like just shown guys traditional data. We do test them on like a flying 10, which can we can kind of predict some times based off that, right? We test them on a broad jump, a vertical jump. Usually, if you're a receiver and your vertical jump is 24 inches, you're probably not going to run super fast. Now, if you come in and you vert off rip, 35 or something like that, that's a little bit different, So you can show guys traditional data where guys started and where they finished, and just having very realistic conversations with them and getting them to understand that how fast you are doesn't make you a good football player. It's okay if you're a running back and you run a 4.8. Like there's really good ones out there that have done that. I think a lot of people think that your times indicate the kind of player that you are. Your times more indicate the potential, of what you could be, if used correctly, and just general explosiveness. You're not going to really find many people in the NFL that did not test really good for their position unless they played at a very high major and were very, very productive. You know, like someone like Geno Stone, who I think the world of, a Newcastle kid. We've trained Geno since he was in high school. Geno's not the fastest guy in the world. Like he ran like a 4.6 at his pro day, but Geno's a very, very, very good football player. You know what I mean? Like, and he was a very good football player in high school. He was a all conference, 2-time all Big Ten safety. So Geno running a 4.6 isn't as concerning as if you played it, Robert Morris and you ran a 4.6, right? I mean, the production at that high level it means a lot. So you're not going to see many people in the NFL that didn't test great. Most people in the NFL are going to be that last in the NFL are going to be guys that tested great and played great. Now you will have certain circumstances at times where guys that are like just off the chart testers, that make it because of that. They call them height, weight, speed guys, just big, strong, fast. You know, Guys can run it on special teams for 10 years, but usually teams don't want a guy that's just going to run that on special teams. You want a guy that can actually provide as your fifth, sixth receiver, you know, play some sort of. I mean, every position is different, right? But I'm just saying skill guys. Like you want to have skill guys that actually have a little bit of value on offense and defense. Now, there's some guys who make it in the NFL and never play offense and defense. Like I don't think Slater ever played.
He was just special teams
Yeah,
guy.
so
Yeah.
yeah, like there's guys like that, but that's pretty rare. You know, Even like Ross, he played some defense like at times, for New England and Pittsburgh. So even those are guys you think are just special teams guys, but like you got to be able to play football, man. You know what I mean? Like and um, those guys are freaks. Like there's those guys are freaks. Like guys like Ross and. I mean, those guys are freaks, and people don't realize that. You know what I mean? Like they just see like like a under 6 foot white guy or like a skinny, like these dudes can go, man. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like that in all sports, but football, unfortunately, is fortunately for me because it's my area of expertise and I make money from it, right? But other sports don't put as much weight. I mean, when have you ever heard about how high somebody's vertical is going into the NBA draft? Like, what if somebody's vertical was, his vertical wasn't as high as I thought it was going to be? It's like, that doesn't happen. They just watch them play basketball. Like, but in football, say, last year, I don't know, say Shador Sanders ran a 5.2, that would have been national news. It's like, what does it matter? Like, like you saw him play football for a year. It doesn't. And I think, to be honest with you, the way things are going, you would have to think that they would be getting rid of. I don't want them to get rid of testing because obviously it's a big part of my life and I love doing it and I think it's beneficial and it's fun. But you would think they would just use the data from their GPSs now and game speed. I mean, why does it matter? I mean, but then traditionally you wouldn't be able to compare guys in the draft, which is I think what they like. You can compare two people year after year, what they did and stuff a lot easier, but who's to say you can't do that with the same data off of a GPS? It's just you haven't had it forever, you know. Um, but I think it'll probably transition to that. I don't know. What do you think? Probably.
I always say, because I used to be a guy that cared so much about testing just because, I predominantly tested well. But then as I got older and got more into like evaluation and understanding players and looking at the whole encompass of what makes a good football player, right, I'm a big like minimum threshold guy. Like if you're a defensive lineman, you have to be a minimum size for to be a viable
Yeah.
NFL player, and then we can make like the other pieces work. And just
Yeah.
given what I like to do and everything that I work in, I probably overvalue character in terms of, or intangible traits that are hard to measure with a stopwatch or, a bench press. But in general, I'm like a big minimum threshold guy. Now you can't be minimum in everything,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
like if you are a skill player, you have to be a minimum level of speed. Once you're above that, I'm not going to knock you. Right.
Mhm.
Or if I'm a, like I said, offensive defensive lineman, you have to be a minimum level size for me to consider you. Once you check that minimum box, then it's like, okay, now let's take the full evaluation into place of what matters.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams have that. I would say, just from the scouts that I work with, and you could, I mean, when I have guys come in for draft prep, I could tell you their chances of playing in the NFL based off what they look like with their shirt off. Literally. I mean, you could just see, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like what does a guy's pecs look like? What does his back look like? Like what is his just structure like? I mean, you could tell. Like when you saw Jamarcus Weston last year, I mean, you're like, this cat's gonna play in the NFL. You know what I mean? Like you just can just tell. Funny story about that. I won't mention his name, but there was an NFL guy from or a college guy from he's actually from he lives in Pittsburgh now, but he went to play. He went to a college football camp, and he ran like a 4.9. Okay, and the college said, "Look, if you come back here, like we want to offer you, but our coach only offers guys who at your position who run 4.6s." Okay, he's like, "Okay." He's like, "I'm gonna come back camp. I'm gonna train all summer long, and I'm gonna come back." He ran. He did the same thing, or he went home, trained, came back. Coach timed him. Oh, you ran a 4.6, man. Good job. There was a position coach. He's like, "You did great. I'm gonna talk to coach." Talked to coach. Coach offered him. He ended up going there. Okay. He ended up going there, being an All American. Okay. And he ended up going for the draft, potentially getting picked up. During training, his trainer kept being like, man, like you're running like, what did you run in high school? Like, like kind of like the situation we were just talking about. Like, he's like, I have you like a 4.8, man. He's like, dude, I ran a 4.6 in high school. He's like, there's no way. After all the training I got and everything, and so he called his college coach and was like, just talking to him. He's like, hey, he's like, I'm all this training is, I thought I was going to run faster. He's like, well, what are you running? He's like, I'm running like a 4.8. He's like, he's like, the funny thing is I made up that you ran a 4.6 when to come here. So our head coach would offer you. You ran a 4.9 or you ran a 4.9 when you were here. And I told him you ran a 4.6. You ended up going there, getting offered, being an All-American. And then that's what his 40 time was, So it's like, it's kind of the other side of that. It's like, well, he didn't check that box, but man, he was a good player. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So like you said, maybe if you don't check that box, if you check a bunch of other ones, how much does that one really matter?
Right.
It's almost like as a recruiter or in colleges or, as a scout in the NFL, you should have like weighted boxes,
Yep.
like maybe 10, like you said, like if you're a team who values character, that's maybe a point system or something like that, where then you can, and I'm sure they have this stuff. I mean,
Right.
I've looked at, I have some friends who coach in the NFL and I've looked into their, like the books and the reports they have on people. I mean, they're so in depth. Like, I mean, they know every single thing about you, but you would think there'd be some sort of credential for that. And a lot of it would probably be like, the GM sets it up like I like this. I like tall corners. I want my corners to be 6'1" or above. And then the position coach is like, okay, then I like these corners. And then he tells the head coach these, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. You would think there'd be some sort of, and I'm sure there is. I'm sure it probably goes exactly like that, really,
Yeah.
But yeah.
You had this quote about speed that had me laughing hysterically because it was during that point in training where people were probably wanting to run faster times than what they're actually capable of. People having those unrealistic expectations of running a 4.4 when in reality they probably run like a 4.7. And you were talking to Ross and I, and you're like, this like 4.4, you're like, if you were a guy in high school where, you're maybe one of the faster guys, and then you go to college and you're still kind of fast, but maybe one of the faster guys. And then you get to the pros and you're like, all of a sudden I want to run a 4.4. You're like, yeah, you're not running a 4.4.
Yeah.
And I was laughing hysterically. I mean, you can only say things in the way that you do, but you're like, where is like the disconnect in these people's heads where they think that all of a sudden they're just going to wake up one day and run a 4.4 and they've run 4.8s their whole life?
Well, to be honest with you, bro, they don't know that they ran that though, because they get, and it's not like I hate to like I don't want to knock the coaches,
Yeah.
but they're not getting told the times they run, or like they're not running the times they're running, and then a lot of it is to do with. So if I'm a strength coach and I train my team all summer long and I want them to run fast and we prioritize speed, I'm hitting the clock early, man. Like and I'm not doing it. I'm not lying to them, but man, do I want these guys to run fast? Like, so, you know what I mean? Like dude, you ran like I want them to make progress as their college strength coach, right? I want my guys to believe in me. If my guys, broad jump or not broad jump, if they ran a 40 at the beginning of the summer, they better have run faster by the end of the summer, or what do I look like? And it's not like I said, it's not like I'm lying, but you know what I mean? You're just gonna have a quicker finger, right? And you go to a high school camp, it's the same kind of thing. You have people that never time. They're football coaches. They're not timers. It's a big difference, you know? Um, yeah, and then you get guys and they think they're really fast, and I don't know why. Like, it's like if you could put on somebody's film, and what scouts do is they'll give you an estimated 40. And usually their estimated 40 is really accurate, right? If you see a kid in the open field, like say it's a running back, he gets the ball and he bursts and nobody's even coming close to that guy. He's pretty fast, right? You would think he's like a 4.4 or 4.5 guy. If he bursts through the hole, runs 20 yards and gets caught, he's like probably a 4.6 guy. You know what I mean? And it's kind of like if he gets caught immediately, you know what I mean? That's all it is. It's like you can see it clear as day. People's closing speed, especially like with receivers, how they run full speed all the time. Sometimes DBs it's hard because they're not really running in a straight line a lot, but special teams is a pretty good indicator of it. But yeah, man, like I don't know. People, if you're not like even when you're a little kid, like if you're not really fast, like it's okay. You're not that fast. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it's like, for me, it's like, I was once this guy, and that's why I'm so like brutally honest sometimes with people, and like black and white with people, because I did not have anybody do that to me. I was like oblivious. And like me, I love when someone tells me you're wrong. And I'm like, well, why? What did I do? I didn't even know. Like, tell me and I'll change. Like, like I was like living this lie. Like I'm like training, for uh I didn't have a pro day, but I worked out for a bunch of teams when I graduated. And like I'm like thinking I'm like a 4.5, and like I'm not. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was like definitely a 4.6, probably a mid 4.6, 4.7 guy maybe. And I mean I went to freaking Liberty out of high school, which isn't Alabama. You know what I mean? I left. I played at Slippery Rock. I wasn't like burning people. Like I'm like, why would I ever have thought that? You know what I mean? Like I wasn't like running by every DB like we played. I'm like they're side by side with me. Like, so why did I ever think that? And I just kind of lived in the reason why I'm saying this, because had I known that, I could have gotten better at it, right? I was living this. I'm fast. You know what I mean? Like I could jump really high, but I just wasn't that fast for whatever reason. And knowing my body now and what I could have done athletically, I probably could have been a lot better of a football player if I known I wasn't that fast in a straight line. But I thought that I was, you know, because I could jump so high. I mean, I could hit my head on the backboard. But I mean, usually when you have that trait, especially as a one-legged jumper, you can run pretty fast, man. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what one thing when you guys like. That's why they test in the NBA draft. They do like a single leg jump, a double leg jump. It's just power outputs. You know what I mean? So usually, if you see a guy jump really high, they can run fast. So, but I didn't have anybody tell me that. So that's why I'm not in the NFL as well as politics. So.
Oh, well, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your coming on today. If people want to reach out to you, if you have anything to promote, what can we expect from you going forward?
I don't have much, you know. Just I try to tweet a decent amount or put stuff on X, you know. That's really me. The other stuff, you know, it's just kind of like business marketing stuff. But I found it funny on like on Twitter or whatever. It's like I used to post all this like borderline like controversial stuff and like I used to get all these people like liking it and like comment on it, and now I just post like all like religious stuff and I get like 300 views, no likes. I'm like damn, this is kind of crazy, but that's what people don't like, that stuff, um so yeah, I would say that.
What's your handle?
Just Terry Grossetti. Yeah, and just business stuff is Grossetti Performance. Should have some good stuff coming up soon. We have a cool newsletter. It's on our website if you want to sign up for that. I post that once a month and it's kind of funny, informative, nice pictures, How about you? What do you have coming out, man?
I mean, same stuff. I got this going on, got the newsletter, and then yeah, everything else is on athleticfortitude.com. But yeah, nothing necessarily particularly new. Just continuing to get after with what we've been doing. But
Nice. Well, thanks for having me on, brother. I
nah,
appreciate it, man.
appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
It's always a blast. And
Yeah.
listeners, thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week. Check us out at athleticfortitude.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Download the pod. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. 5 stars only, baby. See you guys next week. Thanks.